ask you all to introduce yourself and just sort of give us a bit of a positioning statement on the circular economy. And then we're going to ask you some questions or allow the audience to ask some questions. So if we start with Giovanni. Oh, sorry, it's all very organised. I'll do what I'm told. We're going to start with Ruth. Sorry.
Thanks, Jared. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ruth Kelly-Walsmith. I'm a project director at Horley and part of the lighting team there. I'm also past president of the Society of Light and Lighting in the UK, and I'm based in London. So I'm hoping to bring a perspective here about the market in the UK, specifically because that's where I'm most established. And I guess when it comes to the circular economy, what I really think is important here is that it's changing the way we do things. It's absolutely fundamentally shifting the way we think about specifying products. It's also given us a really new, I feel, appreciation of the work that our manufacturing partners do, and the whole supply chain, which has brought about lots of opportunities to collaborate in really exciting ways. So I suppose, I don't want to go on, but just to kind of sum this up, and many crises produce great innovation, and I think this is an example of that. So it's a really exciting time to be in lighting.
Thanks, Ruth. Let's move on.
Yeah, so just Giovanni Zambri, iconic designer in Smith. So from my perspective, based on the projects that I've worked on, Saudi and Neom, and as well as Oxford Dubai, it's all about educating the clients and working closely with the barness and lead team to get the standards right and the accreditation right for your project. Doesn't mean that what you design must be bizarre, boring, but designing in an efficient way that the choice of products, the location of the lighting, helps to optimize the space with the less points used in the space as well. And also tying it back to the management system, like explained earlier by the other speakers. But what are these integrations need to work together? But the most key point of our most of the project of the years here, it's actually educating the client, also the supplier and the contractor, to get the most efficient side of the lighting scenario. So we can Brian and really are.
Oh, we don't do the slides. It's okay. I can talk about the slides. I'll keep it brief. So yes, Erin Dick Costello, associate lighting designer from Delta Lighting. We're going to do the slides. We'll go through the slides anyway. I made a few slides, so anyway. So here I've just got a brief presentation just about Delta's standpoint at the moment on circular economy. So we've been in Dubai and London, established here in Dubai, and so we've seen over this period the whole industry has been changing. It's interesting to see how things in the UK and in Europe are slowly coming into the Middle East region. It can be quite difficult sometimes in this region to get these new mindsets. So it's really a change in the way the whole industry thinks. So for us, we kind of think about this holistically, looking at the stakeholders. So the three stakeholders that we focus on. So firstly, is the clients. So reiterating what many of us have said, the clients, the first stakeholders that we look at. So it's quite critical here, getting them on board very early and sharing the knowledge. Knowledge is a big thing here. The lead and boss today is generally the first thing that clients speak to you about, and it's not enough. It's not enough, really, what we think. So it's about starting with them and then moving forward forcefully to designers. So for us, it's about looking at the design phases. We address it early on through concept and then through the specification of quality limiters, making sure we've got fixtures that have this consideration of end of life, and working with the manufacturers to push that, which then goes to manufacturers. So, sorry, I didn't realize everyone else had slides. We got asked to do slides, so we're doing slides. So working with the manufacturers is critical. Without the manufacturers, we can't execute our projects. Without asking the hard questions and pushing the accountability, we can't execute this holistically as a whole design. So yeah, these are the three aspects that we work on, making sure it's a holistic change in the industry. And we really can't stress that this is not optional. This is not optional. This is where it's going. We can't wait for this anymore.
Thank you, James. I'm James Rothschild from Splicing. I'm the International Sales Director. Very much, we are a manufacturer that work the world, especially in the Middle East. We're based in the UK, we're 70% of the globe. Our approach to sustainability is actually started about 4 or 5 years ago. Certainly when personally I spent a lot of time with very large clients with the workshop and also for License for Good, which was an initiative started up by LVMH. So we've been quite invested into it. So like Erin just said, she's the one who sort of puts us under pressure to consider how we produce, how we design, and ultimately how we recycle. And even refurb, because as we know, there's a lot of products out there in the market. It's still about just reviewing as how you can kind of make use of what's already there. That's a big focus for we do as a week. Thank you, James. We've heard from all of these, so we're going to finish the little introductions and then have questions. So we'll finish with Paul.
Hello, I'm Paul Nazi. So can I just start by asking a show of hands? Is there anybody here that doesn't work in lighting? Any architects, interior designers, developers, clients? No. Okay. So firstly, there's our problem, right? We're preaching to the choir already. I can sit here and I can tell you that we have a sustainability statement, we have an environmental impact manifesto. You are all lighting people, you are all well educated, I hope, and knowledgeable people. You don't need me to sit here and preach to you about the circular economy. You understand it. There's been 2 very good presentations already that have covered it. So I don't need to tell you about that. I think the issue that we face as an industry is not that we need to put our manifestos out there. I think our issue is that we don't necessarily have the clients or the marketplace that is yet ready for it. The technology exists. We can all go and track products start to finish and understand the embodied energy and the carbon cycle within the water cycle, actually, which is becoming more prevalent at the moment. We can do that as designers and as suppliers and manufacturers. And we can give you that data. Do we work with clients that want it? We worked on a project recently in London where it was for a large oil company. They wanted fully, carbon neutral lighting products. So there's an awful lot of information we had to dig and mine. We had some suppliers come to us and say, how much do you want us to tell you is in here, carbon? The people willing to lie. It's the Wild West. We had suppliers supply fixtures at an 80% premium to use recycled materials. So huge impact. You soon start to test your clients' desire for full sustainable carbon life cycle products if you're charging more money, for sure. Rico lights, the sort of golden boy, the golden child of the industry at the moment. We're working with the Science Museum. We wanted to recycle some light fixtures there with Rico light. It became so cost prohibitive that they ended up being thrown away into landfills, which is a real shame. So we don't yet have an industry that is ready for it. So what I'd say here, rather than telling you how great we are and what our sustainability statement is that we as an industry need to get together and have an industry voice and an industry statement that lobbies government. It's harder here because of the way the Middle East is governed, but if you look at the way LED was adopted 15, 20 years ago in Europe, it was subsidized. Governments were paying people to adopt LED technology. Well, frankly, the only way we're going to go into a full, honestly sustainable carbon economy is for governments to step in and to make it cost viable for business. I'm going to stop talking, I promise. I've probably stolen half the question, so I apologise. But it's something I feel very passionate about. I think the IALD, the ILP, the SLL, they all need to get together, and we need a better industry statement because we can all sit here and greenwash, no problem at all.
Thank you, Paul.
Preaching to the choir, but getting us to all sing the same song. And that's it. Okay, we'll start with that. Okay, so we are going to open it up for some questions now. Sharon, do you want to start with this?
Yeah, normally everyone's too shy to ask a question.
Anybody else?
So
Put your hand up and I will come to you and you can answer your question.
I'm happy to ask some questions to kick it off. I think you've sort of covered quite a few different kinds of questions we're going to ask, but we can go into more detail. Yeah, we think you won't be high back. So I guess firstly, I mean, what's the, if I'll sorry, Erin, I'm going to pick you. What can you sort of explain the general attitude to being circular in bees?
Sorry, I'm just
I've had to talk that way. What's the general attitude to being circular in the Middle East? Do you think it's, you know, when you say those words, people understand what you're saying, or you know, what's the sort of opinion of people in general?
It's limited. Like Paul was just saying, there's not so many clients that are on board with this. The limited knowledge of sustainability is hitting a number on lead and, you know, designing an efficient way. And, you know, there's levels to this. You know, we can design in an efficient way and we can, you know, hit watts per square meter count, but that's not that hard to do because LEDs are so efficient now. You know, what's more challenging is getting to that next level, and unless you have the clients that want that, it's a bit difficult to get them on board. We do have some architects that have this like ethos around that, so it's easier, but it's uphill to say the least.
I was just going to make a point, but I need to ask recently to do some lead data and do so much of circular economy detail. It seems to be counterintuitive what they're asking us to do to get a fixture and then make it low glare, which is almost as if you're not considering any of the voltage ideas. I think if Lee can talk to some of the existing lighting bodies in the industry to say, right, it's not just about inlet control, it's about the power consumption, something else. I think that would work if they do talk together. I mean, there are organisations that work together. Obviously, I think Bruce can talk a bit more about what they have done, certainly with the Society of Light and Lighting of the UK. TM65 is each other. So
Next question.
sure, on to, sorry. But I think that is quite critical. But I mean, I think the UK has been pushing quite hard, which is as manufacturing in the UK, we've been under pressure. By the way, we've done a huge amount of work with EPDs and all the kind of recipe of what goes into that product. And there's a huge amount of data that's been compiled. Everyone has to do it at some point. European Union is kicking in hard. You know, 2025 and beyond that, we're going to not be able to supply anything that's efficient. Fortunately, these might be a bit of glare, but that's just the compromise to be made. So we are doing it, and there are customers who want it. Admittedly, you know, LVMH, when we work with them, they're all about 100 lumens per watt 4 years ago, down to 10 watts per square meter. It's kind of getting there. So, because their shareholders are insisting on that, and unfortunately, money talks, but maybe that's what we've got
The
talking about.
issue you have is sustainable design is not circular design, and don't conflate the two. We work with LVMH, for example, and try to get them to reuse and repurpose fixtures, and you say to them, actually, you've got to refurbish these, but it's going to cost you more than it would if it were purchased new. They don't want to spend the money. I mean, look, Mark, my esteemed colleague, is standing at the back. He tried to initiate a really wonderful initiative at the end of Expo, which was to reuse and repurpose some of the light fixtures that were being taken out of Expo. And it became such a minefield of liturgy, because if you take them out, somebody give them to a village in Africa somewhere, somebody gets electrocuted, who's responsible for it, and so forth. That it just died a death at the first hurdle. And unless we as an industry, again, sort that out, and as at a governmental level sort that out, then the idea of repurposing and reusing, it ain't ever going anywhere.
Just to take up with that, sorry, that it's interesting if you talk to that particular retailer, they when they refurb their stores, sales were up 30%. So that's a fact. So it's difficult to get that. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, we're going to this from you again.
And before you do that, I think because we've mentioned TM66,
That's it.
like a good straw poll of the room, who's heard of TM66? Oh, that's a small amount. So I guess that would be something really good to explain, because it would be good if everyone was using it. So I think that's.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Sharon. I mean, I'll try and summarise it. TM66 is a roadmap for creating a circular economy in the lighting industry. So it's not a guidance document or a standard. It's what I've just described. But within it and accompanying it, there are two assessment methods: circular economy assessment method, or CEAM. One is aimed at manufacturers and producers, and the other is aimed at specifiers. And effectively, they're scoring systems. I think the key thing about TM66 is that there was a void where TM66 now exists. It's not perfect, but it was filling a void that was there, and it's definitely, I think, propelled the conversation, certainly in the UK, around how we should do this. So it's providing one route, if you like, but there may be others, and I know that there are others that are emerging as well in other regions and throughout Europe. I hope that's adequate, but if anyone has any other questions, you can always talk to me afterwards as well.
Okay, thank you, David. Really the vibe and the Gilway from the lights. Giovanni, where are you based?
Baseball line.
Based in Dubai. Okay,
Yeah.
good. So this question's for you. One of the things here, doesn't matter what it is, whether you talk sustainability, circular economy, and Paul hit on the point. I mean, just as an example, I sit on the IFB technical committee, and we were talking about security by lighting. And we had engineers and we had light designers, but we didn't have any clients, we didn't have any local council, we didn't have developers. So sometimes we talk too much amongst ourselves. So we're all, as Paul says, we're all singing the same song, we're all in the choir. How do you get the message across to clients out here in Dubai? That's tough. I know the facades here and try to sort of concentrate on dark skies and so on. So we may want something blue. How do you get this across when they're talking sustainability, but they're flying Italian marble, albeit the best in the world, flying it across? How do you make your argument?
Yeah, that's a nice question. That's a very difficult to answer because it's all related to the brief when you have with the clients and how they want their project designed. So we can sort of then design it how they want, but when we're choosing projects, try to be logical where they come from, because at the end of the day, everything is important into Dubai. As well as there's another point to this which is making it even harder. When we go well, we normally go to like BE stage, embedded engineering, where suppliers don't care what a lighting consultant does, and they just change it to the most cheaper thing that comes from China or Turkey without taking these things into consideration. So it makes our job even harder. We need to start thinking ahead of different manufacturers, suppliers, where these things come from, having an alternative list that the client can hit, so we can get the target budget when we actually do our lighting design intent. Because normally when we design a project, we don't get a budget to design to, so we normally go for like a tier A, tier B, or tier C, but we always have to keep in mind to drop to a further B option when we go to site construction. So it's very hard to apply those rules here. We can do it the best we can, but the Achilles heel when it comes to the supplier or these type of distributors in the market or this particular region.
Thank you, Jamal. I think we've got another question over here.
Hi, this is Zubair. I have a question for Praveen. Praveen, you've been working on projects recently, for a long time now, trying to work with manufacturers and looking into the circular economy or creating luminaires. On the manufacturer's end, what challenges do you see, and the client's end, how do they look at it?
Okay, so to start with, when we have this big dialogue of circular economy, my first question is, there are a lot of manufacturers here, a lot of specifiers here. We know the life of the LED is possibly 75,000 hours at the least. Yeah. And how many manufacturers give a guarantee or a warranty for, as I say, 10 years or 15 years life cycle of a product. That's fundamentally what we need to look at as specifiers, where we look at getting these guarantees from manufacturers initially, so that the products are sustainable, they can last 10, 15 years, possibly the life of a project lifetime. And then we can look at how we can repurpose them and reuse them and recycle them. But the fundamental issue is, even the big manufacturers worldwide today do not give a warranty more than 5 years. I've been specifying luminaires with 10 years warranty, including the drivers. I've spoken to a couple of manufacturers like Tridonic who are now agreed to give 10-year warranty on the electronics product as well. But that was fundamentally the reason why manufacturers wouldn't give a warranty, saying that the electronics might not last. But now, if you can get those warranties, why are we not specifying luminaires with 10 to 15 years warranty? That itself increases the overall life cycle and reduces the overall carbon footprint. And if those luminaires are well designed, that you have your life cycle retained, you over-design the luminaire, use an LMS system which will then cut it down, the maintenance factor is reduced. Initially you run it at 80%, and then after 5 years you run it at the remaining 100%. You're still able to get a longer life on the product. And that's something with what I think is like a baby step to be taken. And then we start looking at the complete circular economy and repurposing, because most of the cases I've seen, when you try to reuse a luminaire, the cost which comes to the manufacturer is always more high. So it just doesn't work. I've tried repurposing a luminaire. The cost is like what Paul mentioned. The cost is always exorbitant.
Do you want to come back?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I am. Okay, first of all, we do give 5-year warranty. We can give longer. I think we're starting to look at longer. If Fancy came to us yesterday, so they can give us 10-year guarantee on the module. We would match that. Elderlet can give a 10-year guarantee as well. They're doing that. I think more and more manufacturers are starting to move in that direction.
That's what I'm saying.
I think also going back to what I said, the way that Lucent has always developed their products from MR16 days, it's always been in the very modular format, which is a good advantage because ultimately we went from an MR16, we've now gone to a LED engine, and the nice kind of versatility to it, which actually we don't talk a lot about, is the fact you can swap and change, the fixture of the engine, you can take out the optic, you can do that, and that in actual fact, without us knowing it, that's given us a bit of a leapfrog to where we are now, so that we can recycle or upgrade when it's already out in the field. That's what part of the scheme that we're doing is kicks in this year called ProSite, which is effectively giving, and another manufacturer doing similar ideas, whereby we will say, right, that product we will take back, we'll give you a float of products for a period of time, and then we can send it. Ultimately, where we want to be is that we want to be able to identify what the upgrade is and just send out the module and just click it in. That's where we want to get to. It's just that takes a bit of time, effort, and money, and we will be there.
I mean, what's a warranty? So say if you've got a 10-year warranty, at the end of the day, if it's just a warranty, I'm not saying Lucent necessarily do this, but if there's a warranty for 10 years, if after 10 years it still ends up in landfill,
Well,
you have, instead of in that lifetime having 2 of them in landfill, there's still 1. Like, why is that 1 not then sent back, right, and refurbished? And that's a whole extension of a manufacturing industry that can also be beneficial financially for a manufacturer. That's a whole section that they could focus on repurposing, refurbishing. Maybe a hotel, instead of buying light fixtures, rents the light fixtures.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you? Sorry. No, I was going to just ask you, Paul and Giovanni, are there any companies in the region that are dedicated to just refurbishment of?
Not
at all.
In my humble opinion, the people doing it best is Skinful in the UK. They are one of the very few people genuinely repurposing light fixtures. Okay. I was going to say, as specifiers, I was at an architectural conference a few weeks back, and what struck me as these architects were presenting their projects was how much thought architects are having to put into the end of life of buildings now. People saying, we've got ceramic tiles on the glaze, on facade. At the end of life, they're going to be broken up and used as hardcore for pavements, for example. We don't do that as a lighting industry, and I wonder really whether we should be thinking about operations, maintenance, and end of life as a manual. What happens, if an LED chip is being taken out or the heat sink is being replaced, as a dialogue between us and manufacturers, the specifiers and manufacturers, there should be an idea of what they could be repurposed as. Is that aluminium suddenly turned into toasters? I don't know, but whatever it is, I think that there should be a conversation around the reuse or repurposing of materials, and that isn't a dialogue that happens at the moment.
Thank you, Paul. Brandon,
Yes, Paul, this question is to you. In the US, the electric utilities help create the demand for LEDs with utility rebates, government and tax deductions. We have these organizations like IALD, IES get together and they do lobby governments. How do you see that working? How can governments help with the circular economy?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I'm not a politician, so it's very difficult for me to answer. I know probably people here better placed than I am to answer this. My take on it would be a tax break. If you can demonstrate that you are repurposing X number of or X tonnage of materials, or you are saving X amount of carbon, then there should be some level of tax break against that. I mean, ultimately, when the LED subsidisation was coming in, certainly in the UK, it was very much about what's this per metre squared saved. So if you could save this amount of energy, you can have this amount of tax break. So in my mind, it should be something around the amount of either material being reused and repurposed versus being recycled versus going into landfill, or certainly to do with pollutants, for sure. So it has to be monetized. The only way, none of us are going to put our hands up and say to EMAR or the MAC or MAF or any other developer in this region and say, really sorry guys, we're not going to design your project because it's not fully circular, right? It's not going to happen. We've all got businesses to pay for and staff to pay. So let's be realistic about it. I think, therefore, the only way is if it becomes financially incentivized for those developers. And that's the thing. They don't want to spend more money. It's a race to the bottom at the moment. I think, projects are getting tighter and tighter as far as budgets go. So there has to be a way of financially incentivizing developers ultimately. And that comes through government subsidization, I guess, with tax rates. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Well, thank you. We have another question from the audience.
I want to know from a manufacturer perspective, from the manufacturer perspective, is there an effort going into standardizing the component sizes and the forms? Because that ways, right now refurbishment is expensive because everything is different. It's very difficult, probably. I'm not sure about what TM66 is. But is there an effort to standardize the forms so that I can replace, say, Lucent's engine to some other product? Is that,
It's already here. We've always worked with a 50mm diameter lamp as a common commonality, because obviously I'm old enough to know, MR16 and then lead 35, it's a bulb module, it's 35mm, so MR11 size. So we're going to continue with that path, and most other manufacturers in the region have done the same. The way that we design it is modular, so you could take out a module. Not that I want you to, you could put out somebody else's engine, and sometimes we have to do that because of price. So we're already doing that and have done that. We just don't talk about that much.
I've seen the fixing details.
I can't.
Sorry.
Just to come back to you on that, we previously used to use spring brackets. The annoying thing is we've just changed over, so we can't do it as easily as we would have been able to, but we've got progress as well. So this material.
Whatever happened to Zaga?
It's still around, is it? Yeah, it's just that I think it's been dominant of the big players, not necessarily
I
players
heard
like
of
this.
Zaga 5 years back, and now I never hear of one more.
Yeah, hi, my name is Ranjit. Circular economy, the whole topic has been going on for a couple of years, and deeply thinking about, especially what Paul mentioned. I'm not sure whether we are thinking of repurposing products. Like, for example, Dubai is a consumerist state. I mean, there's hardly any manufacturing happening here. So, for example, if Lucent is supplying something here, after during the end of life, getting it back to the UK, reproduce it. I don't know whether that's the right approach to circular or reuse. Probably what Paul alluded to of a heat sink becoming a toaster, or kind of really differentiating all components of a particular product as aluminium, plastics, like the computer industry, you have the entire electronics. So look at each of these materials and refurb and kind of recycle it. Like for example, if you have so much of gold being mined out of your computers, so why not look at that approach rather than looking at refurbishing each of these products? Because for example, a product uses sheet metal powder coated. It's really laborious to repowder coat the whole product. Look, it's just not possible after 5 years. So I think more than refurbishing or reusing the product, rather let it go into your firing furnaces, just melt it and let it be used for something else,
I think the issue there is that the amount of energy it takes to do that, what you're describing, is essentially recycling, the components. And I think the philosophy behind the circular economy in the TM66 sense is about keeping the lighting products in lighting. So it's about repurposing them, but keeping them within that realm. And actually, as you were speaking, it occurred to me that in this region, there's a great opportunity for somebody to move into that space in terms of, as you say, there is manufacturing here, but to be able to take products out of at the end of life and keep them here, there's a huge demand for that in all the development that's happening all the time. And I'm also very conscious that at this point, a lot of the projects and buildings that are here are now being refurbished and renewed and refreshed. And I wonder about the opportunities that creates as well. But I absolutely take on board, what Paul and others have said. It does cost more, and I completely agree that it needs to be incentivized because the people are trying to run businesses here. I mean, that's the reality of it. And financial incentives and rewards are needed to propel this forward, and then it, hopefully becomes self-sustaining.
Can I come back on that, just from a manufacturing point of view?
Hang on, just one second.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, it was quite interesting with the awards this year for Light Middle East, that for the first time in April here, there are a couple of projects that were refurbished projects, and they really stood out in that way because that was something we hadn't seen before. Sorry, James.
Yeah, actually, some brands like we work with don't like to talk about the refurbishment that's happened. That's just the way in which they are. So we, for example, did split halides to LED, and because of the way we made the products, we basically sent out a kit to take out the metal halide lamp holder and just provide them a kit with an LED. So we did do that, and it was in the region, but of course I can't talk about it properly because I won't allow us to. But we are going back to the point that was made previously. I think the weakest part of the chain is the driver and the LED itself. Unfortunately, you can't recycle the drivers because it's a complex componentry, and the driver manufacturers have told us that basically you can change out the actual LED module. We've actually got something on our stand that shows you how you can do that. And so that small piece can quite easily be sent out without having to ship the whole thing all around the world. So it is possible, it is coming. So we are dealing with it as best we can.
Let's put you on the spot. What's the cost difference? Great, the idea of refurbishing, taking out a metal halide module, inserting presumably with at least a semi-custom LED module into it. What's the cost of that versus the cost of a new fixture?
It's definitely half the price. Yeah, definitely. You've just not got as much, and also you're not shipping as much out there. So the weight is not going to be as much. So it's definitely a better way of doing it.
That's right.
And in fact, you talk about the hotels. 20, there's some of these hotels 20 years old. Refurb should be the conversation.
Back soon. Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much, Giovanni, or anybody who could answer, please. My name is Ellie Shefflin, and the one stakeholder in the room that's not being discussed, we've talked about the designers, we've talked about the owners, we've talked about the manufacturers, but the cost for the refurbishment is often, and maybe even on the warranty, should be paid by the contractor. Can you talk about the role of the contractor who is opposed to bringing in the lift, even if it's a tiny inexpensive module to be replaced? It's the labor cost, etc. And I'd love to hear your view in general on the contractor role, but in particular with regard to this whole cycle, because dumping it into the landfill is certainly easier on them as well than using a screwdriver on 2 screws or one nut to do any refurbishment whatsoever. And I have your comments on that stakeholder.
So, around the stakeholders, I can't answer for that, but from my opinion, it's like when we do refurbishments of projects, there's a light source or installation point that a contractor is going to be charging per point. What they do with the project, they're just going to dump it at the end of the day and no one cares about it. But one of the main things that people not speak about is actually the management system, because we're refurbishing, but the client wants to use the old management system from the building, and we notify the client that these systems are going to start burning up over a year's time, because the integration of LEDs to the old metal halide is actually burning up the system, so now they have to replace this as well, but we build these systems at the end of the day. So when we start designing, we try to work closely with the light management system teams to ensure that at the end of the day, it can be upgraded or degraded according to the site needs or the client needs or what will happen in 5 to 10 years time, especially on the facade and landscape, because that's forever changing. For the interiors, what you notice when the contractors go to site, they rip everything out and they destroy it away. We can't control that from the specifier side, but we can advise them on the FMT what they should do on modules and stuff like that, the best we can. But that's a part of what to answer. Great.
I think in Europe it's a much easier relationship. In this particular region, it's a very fractious relationship with contractors. I think I wouldn't want to be a contractor in this region because it's always a race to the bottom. Everybody undercuts everybody. We had a project the other day that we priced with specifiers at about 15 million, and a contractor came in at 2.5 million. So you can immediately see what they're going to do to the quality of the design, and totally like the specifications out the window. So there's a fundamental problem in this particular region with the role that contractors play and the relationship that contractors have with the specifiers and with the clients. You know, it's very monetary driven. And I think if we can find a way, and I really don't know the answers to this, but if we can find a way of coming away from that so that contractors start to competitively respect the specification, then there's a much easier conversation to be had. And I think many suppliers in the room will probably be nodding their head at that point, you know, but all the whilst it is a race to the bottom and people are just undercutting each other, the idea of it, you know, having any emphasis on the circular economy, unless it is written into the employer's requirements documents, it's not going to happen.
The circular economy does give the opportunity to protect specifications. That's one of the things that people have been really pleased about. But I completely agree from what I've heard in this region, being able to control what the contractor does and recognising the harshness of the market that they're operating in, their ability to be able to do anything other than the easiest and least costly thing is very difficult. And I guess I'm going back to what we said earlier about rewarding. I wonder, you know, we need to look at how contractors could be financially incentivized to do the right thing. I don't know where that money comes from, but you know, if I knew that, we wouldn't be here. But yeah.
Question in the back. Hi. Coming back to the actual circularity principles, so we talk about reuse and repurpose as well, but
what about actually reduction in the first place? Because it wouldn't be a subjective opinion to notice in Middle East that there's brightness levels are much higher in comparison to Europe. Light pollution is actually quite dense, as well as pumping in facades, shooting the sky, quite much abundance actually in the interiors and exterior lighting designs, both for luminaires aspect and the lighting design. I was wondering actually if this is also driven by the clients, and if so, will this be changed through educational one-to-one engagements or overall engagements with the dark sky associations or other bodies?
Thank you. Praveen, do you want to respond on that one?
So, one of the things that I actually wanted to put forward is when we as lighting designers design it, we're already looking at LEED standards, we're already looking at how we can reduce the carbon footprint to the minimum. And I think this region has already looked at LEED standards in detail, possibly a decade back. So I think in terms of the initial design itself, we are very competitive in terms of reducing the carbon footprint. When it comes to what you call the circular economy as such, one of the key issues is the fact that LED as a technology has been evolving, let's say, for the past 10 years. And I don't think, and one of the 5 principles of circular economy is designed for disassembly. And that as a practice hasn't happened in the last 10 years, it's just catching on now. And now we are at a stage where, we can look at modular designs where in the coming future, because I think it was still evolving over the last 10 years. LED technology was still evolving. We still have new kind of luminaires coming in as the efficiency is increasing. If you look at the drivers which were used 10 years back versus the drivers which are there now, they're very different. So if we're looking at a refurbishment at this stage of those luminaires which were used 10 years back, I don't think that's the right approach. But now if we look at design for disassembly and because now things are stabilized, we can look at in the coming 10 years or 10, 15 years, we can look at the circular economy working much better.
Thank you, Praveen. Thank you.
I think we've probably got time for one last question. So unless
there you go, Mr. Gilby.
I was going to say, unless anybody put their hand up, I'm going to ask it. Fair enough. You can have the pleasure.
Mr. Gilby's my dad. How old do you think I am? What about the question of greenwashing? And so, Paul, you mentioned the mark and math, and I'm working with math at the moment, and at least their hospitality portfolio is all LEED Platinum. So, is there some greenwashing going on? How much sincerity is there? I think someone else mentioned about how green you want us to be on this carbon neutral partnership. How do we handle sort of the fact that people can polish how green they are?
I'm not going to cast aspersions on any developers in the region, obviously, but I think it's very easy at this stage. It's great with TM66, to be honest with you, because at least it gives us something to kind of hang a hat on, as it were. But it's very easy in the marketplace, certainly for suppliers, to fudge figures at the moment. Like I said, we had one particular project where we had something like a supplier telling us 1 week that they had 600,000 tons of carbon associated with their product, carbon dioxide associated with the product. Literally the week later, they put a document in front of us and said, it's now only 250,000. So people can fudge figures left, right, and centre, and it's our job, obviously, as designers, to really mine that data. But even then, it's difficult to really figure it out. So it's really easy. I said one thing. There's a certain very large American architectural practice who, to much fanfare and aplomb, I think 2 years ago now, launched their sustainability manifesto, and they were never going to work on this type of project and that type of project and so forth. And whilst I think the ideation behind it, the idea of it is great, the reality of it is, if they actually stuck to everything in there, they wouldn't, it was one of the largest architectural practices in the world, they wouldn't be working on any projects. So I think there's a level of pragmatism that has to be applied as well. So it's very easy to sit here and make sweeping statements about how we're going to save the sort of global economy and how we're going to reduce carbon footprint and assist the circular economy. But unless we're actually living it, unless we're actually doing it and we're evidencing it, then it's all nonsense as far as I'm concerned. And what I would like to see is more emphasis. I would like to see the awards, for example, giving awards for genuine projects and really looking at the data, not just putting sweeping statements and looking at the bullet points. So it's easy.
You're going to have to wait till Thursday night for that. All right. One last question, Shai?
Okay, all right, so just, I guess, to close, probably to all of you that can answer it, for the audience, where should they go to look at sort of, legislation, best practice? Where would you recommend that people visit, online or associations? I'll go from Paul.
Firstly, there isn't a one-stop shop. Do the work, it's what you're employed to do. So you should be responsible for mining the data and looking. But if you do want a one-stop shop, probably the Green Line Alliance is probably about as good a place as you can possibly go at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say Green Light Alliance as well, but I think also talking to some of the manufacturers that are leading in this field is extremely beneficial because they've had to do a huge amount of work already, and they can provide a lot of quite educational content on this topic as well. And I'd also just like to, not really answering your question, but just on that last question about greenwashing, we are on a journey. I think that's what I want to say, is that we're all on a journey with this. So a lot of the standards are like this, they're not talking to each other at all. There's loads of gaps. It's a bit of a wild west in terms of how people are reporting, those figures. Everybody's using different assumptions. So we're on this journey, but let's stay on this journey together.
I'd also that Green Light Alliance, I think they're supposed to do a great job. There's lots of documents on there. I've done a little bit of work on that myself, just trying to help from the manufacturer's point of view. European Union do a load of work on it. Society of Lighting in the UK, lots of documents. We've done our own work. Anybody would see examples of EPDs, life cycle analysis. And in fact, that's one thing you should try and do, go back to what we said before. You need to put manufacturers under pressure to give you that data. If they haven't got it, then they will be getting it. We have tried and we're getting there. As I said, I think that's really the focus. So put pressure onto them. We'll take it, we'll deal with it.
Makes sense, Larry?
TM66 is worth reading. This is also off Green Line Alliance. The checklist is very helpful. If you do not know anything about this and you're a lighting designer and you need to have questions to go to a manufacturer, it gives you a nice, wonderful list of questions to interrogate them next time they come into your office. And again, if they don't have the answers, maybe you should be thinking about who you have that you're working with and putting the pressure on to make some changes.
Thanks, Aaron. I feel like this question's getting harder and harder the further it gets out. I'm so sorry, Giovanni.
Well, as part of just speaking to lighting specifiers inside, because they've designed these really crazy projects, so they would have figured out how to achieve these standards or accreditations, whatever. And it's also for the responsibility of the specifiers to speak to one another, because it all might be a project and I find it very interesting, but I've got a challenging story that I need to adapt to my ethics. So opening that conversation up, being able to share the knowledge to make the project work for yourself as well.
And the being on all words.
Okay, so my take on it is this way, that for now I would take the circular economy as lighting designer with the business thought, because the simple fact that if I look at it 10 years back or 5 years back, the kind of luminaires I used to use and the kind of applications that were there were very different with what I'm designing today. And I'm sure this is going to keep evolving over a period of time. So yes, run-of-the-mill products which are being used by maybe electrical consultants and all of the other guys, yes, the modular approach and the design for disassembly will really work. But as a cutting-edge lighting designer who would want to adopt new technologies and new, I think, 10 years down the line, I don't know what I'm going to be using. So those products may be way different from whatever modularity we have built in today. We do not know what the future is. We didn't know what the future was today, 10 years back, and I think it's been evolving. But yeah, I think that's what I think of it.
I was going to say we do know a little bit about what's going to happen in the future. There's a really big quote above you, but anyway. A thank you to everybody in our panel.
Can I just ask an audience question before we finish? Who in the audience has heard of Green Light Alliance? Raise your hand. Okay, so it's not many. greenlightalliance.org? Or I think it's greenlightalliance.org. Put it into Google, you'll find it. greenlightalliance.org, inchasalt.com. The other end.
Well, can they go now? Okay, you can now then. Thank you very much to our panel.
Round of applause.